the amount of investment in my life where I worked hard up to 37 compared to the last 2 years is to me unfathomable. Real estate had really opened my eyes into a different way of thinking. It's definitely an avenue to make money faster, or your investments grow, better term. But the hard work does pay off. And look at yourself, make your plans.
This is the Yield Coach Show, Season 1, Episode 16. I'm your host, Ian Brown. Every episode we bring you dynamic entrepreneurs, real estate investors, business leaders, and inspirational guests ready to open up, share their story, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so you can gain lessons, advantages, and accelerate your own success. A couple of announcements. We are filming this on Instagram Live when we do this in person. My guest today, Muzzy, is remote, so it won't be on Instagram Live, but follow us on Instagram to be able to get your questions in real time. Also, we have our Employee to Entrepreneur digital course out. Click the link in our bio or go to yield-coach.com for access. And stay tuned for investment opportunities. I have some contracts out on some larger deals, and there may be room for limited partner passive investing. So feel free to message us about that. Things are going well, banging along. All right. Well, I'm excited. Today I am joined by Muzzy, Yousefi, and Muzzy is an interesting guest. He is a mechanical designer residing in Wilmington, Delaware. He studied architecture in school, but decided to practice mechanical engineering instead. He currently is the lead marine structures designer at Anchor Consultants, and he's also a retired car designer and builder. Muzzy was awarded a top 12 car builder in the world by SEMA in 2018. He's currently in year 3 of transitioning into real estate investment. It sounds like you've already acquired and rehabilitated 9 units while managing 5 others. We'll get into that. And you plan to grow your business and expand into commercial real estate in the next few years. And a big goal to retire by 40 and build a family home. All right, without any further ado, Muzzy, thank you and welcome.
Hey, Ian. Thanks for having me.
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad you made the time. I think our guests will get a lot out of what you have to share. Let's jump into a little more about your background. It's fairly interesting with your technical backgrounds, car building. Not everybody jumps into real estate from such a technical, analytical background.
Yeah, so I first tried to become an architect when I was younger. So I went to school for architecture, but going into it a couple years in, trying to get to know other architects, and figured out that that's not for me. Architects were more about the designing, and I came back around to it, but how to actually build the structures and the houses or the buildings was more interesting to me. So I switched to mechanical engineering. I'm more of a person that likes challenges and growing and learning, and keep adding to my repertoire of knowledge. And I was lucky to find a design firm to help me design bigger structures, and going on from there. Very meticulous in building and how parts come together and how pieces work with each other. Was really into cars, how to make things and solve problems pretty much that no one has done yet. So I pushed the envelope in that aspect, did that for 10 years as well. And I got married recently, 3 years ago, and my wife has opened my eyes to all new opportunities, and starting my, long 5-year, 10-year, 15-year plans, and making a game plan and a road plan for us, and decided that I want to get back into architecture and real estate. I'm 37 now. When I was 24, it was amidst of the beginning of the housing crash. And at that time, I was able to get my first loan. At that time, I was like, well, now it's the time to buy. Interest rates won't get any lower. I could pick any house I wanted. They would just give it to me at that time. But at that time, I went and purchased my first home, the largest home I could get. To me, it was an investment. But being a single 24-year-old guy back then, purchasing a 4,000 square foot house makes no sense right now. But when I was 24, it was the investment. And I was going to have roommates, rent it out. Things didn't plan out. Market crashed even more. And I was underwater for about 7 years. Um, in the last 3 years with COVID happening, I was able to get out of that rut. And COVID did help me. Right before COVID, I was able to sell that property. And out of that property, I got about 50,000 in liquid cash from that. With that 50,000, I was able to purchase my first home, renovate it, made it into a duplex, and go on from there. And then I used that equity to get another loan, so on and so forth. I'm on my fifth property I just purchased this year, in the process of converting into a triplex. Um, so with my knowledge background of architecture and the mechanical end, I would say the architecture part helps me with, subdividing, building the homes, knowing the codes. The mechanical end helps me a lot with the plumbing, electrical, all the stuff that goes in the house. So I was lucky during the COVID time when it first started. People got scared, so they just people were selling houses. They just wanted to close the deal. That was my first step, and I would say my first breaking point into the market. After that, the market's been getting worse and worse, but the way I was looking at it is that I was getting properties that weren't really ideal for flippers, because I'm a small guy. I'm by myself. Sometimes my dad helps. My dad's retired. My dad's also an entrepreneur. He studied business back in his home country, and he helped me a lot with some of this business decisions and his upbringing. But anyway, the way I looked at it, as I was picking homes that I could split into duplexes, and by adding like one bathroom or division wall or firewall, and then converting into 2 units, and then I would be in the profit zone of making profit out of that property. So certain properties needed too much work, and flippers were staying away from it. Those are there too. Or some homes were too good and they were priced high for a single family, but if you considered them as a multi-family unit, they were low in price. So it was a different strategy, and I've been using that strategy now going on 3 years. This is my third year. It's like 2 months and 2 years and 6 months now, and it's been going great. I've been able to pick up properties and feel comfortable going above market value and offering above asking price, because I know I'm going to make profit at the end.
All right, you gave us a lot there to start off with. So, going back a little bit in your story, the car building, the architecture, to me that just screams like complementary to what you're doing now. The average investor is not going to buy like a Frankenstein house and see like, okay, I can turn this into a triplex, or they're going to say, okay, maybe this doesn't work for a flipper because this configuration is just not attractive, but if I add a wall here, another kitchen, another bathroom, it works just fine. Now, so you're kind of in a unique niche, but you're also in a hot market. Part of why I wanted to have you on is people are looking for creative ways to turn a profit in real estate right now. And a lot of what I advocate, I tell people essentially, if you have a car, if you're not in the game and you want to be financially free quickly, when I say quickly, inside of 5 years. If you want to become financially free quickly and you have a car payment, you need to get rid of that. You can drive a $5,000 car. It's going to get you there. And if you rent or own a single family home, you need to stop. You need a house hack. You need to get an FHA loan or a VA loan if you qualify. And you need to get out there and find a 2 to 4 unit property and start living for free or cash flowing. Just those 2 moves are going to put $40,000 in your pocket every year. And that is enough to get out and buy an asset or 2 every year, at least for the down payments. So that's kind of my superstar charge path. But I like what you're doing because some neighborhoods just don't have a lot of small multifamily to buy, so you kind of have to create it. Let's jump into, and I haven't done what you're doing, which is why I was excited to have you on. Let's talk about like where you're finding your deals. It sounds like some of them are just like sitting on MLS or Zillow. However, let's talk about like what makes a good deal for you, and then jump into how you're funding it after that.
So I'd say for your viewers or like trying to get into the real estate game is basically just like any business. Try to find what you're trying to do and your audience. So for me, I knew when I was buying properties, I was not going to fix them, repair them, flip them, and sell them. So that's the first step, right? Understanding that I was going to buy real estate to keep and not flip, which is a different strategy. So I was going to keep renters. So what do renters want? Where do you want to be? With COVID and everyone working from home or being entrepreneurs, take a little look. Major metropolitan areas, dense areas they're trying to move up to the suburbs because their rent is high for the amount of square footage they're getting and the quality of the rental unit. So they're willing to pay the same amount for something bigger and nicer 10, 15 minutes down the road because they're not going to the office every day of the week anymore. They're going once or twice or working from home. So that's creating a crisis around the suburbs. So I knew that they would travel. So most of my rental units, I make sure I'm within a half a mile of an interstate exit or a highway exit. Another is it's next to a park because people in the city are used to getting out, walking about, going to the park or having a coffee or something. So most of the units or areas I target close to the highway to get to the city or transportation, and try to get it close to a school or a park because they want to get most renters want to, from the city come to the suburbs, want to get their kids into good schools, and walking distance is a big thing for them. They don't have to drive them. They're not used to that, and they want to be in a park or near that area. So most of my homes, I try to target that.
You're pulling these deals off of MLS or Zillow or Realtor, right. Some of the feeds. Okay, so check that box. Have you tried any direct-to-seller marketing or door knocking?
No, there's a lot around here. I wanted to keep it people to people, and I have some morality issues and stuff, so I want to sleep good at night. And I feel like door knocking pushes it a little too far. It's like a little pressure marketing, and I understand you can find deals that way, but that's just not how I want to operate my business.
Have you done any on the funding side? So of course the direct to seller, I am a big advocate of it, and it's not difficult to maintain morality and candor in direct to seller marketing, just like any effort. I mean, you could be a good attorney, you could be a sleazy attorney, you could be a good real estate agent. So it's all about your personal character. I think a good thing for those of you that are considering direct to seller, if you follow like the Real Deals platform with Elliot and those guys, they use an analogy that if you're doing direct to seller marketing to somebody that owner occupies the property, just treat them like you would like your own grandparent, assuming you actually care for your own grandparent. You don't press them. You make your offer, you let them think about it, and then they can decide. But when you have non-owner occupied property, somebody's investment property that they may or may not have had for a long time, I'm not saying you overpress those people, but you're not putting anybody out on those deals. And most of the good, really, really juicy deals that I've done that have completely changed my life came from off-market or direct-to-seller. So that's the only reason I bring it up. Now, on the funding side, so how are you funding your deals right now?
I was lucky enough with $50,000, I was able to start. If you're trying to get a primary residence loan right now, you can go as low as 3.5%.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the audience might be familiar with like the FHA 3.5. The VAs actually, you can get over 100% financing on VA, and then you can get 5% down conventional loans. Yep. So obviously you're not living in these properties, so let's jump into how you're funding these ones.
So actually, the first one I did live in. So to get first started, I do highly recommend the first for primary residence, because you only need 3.5% or 5% down, which is significantly less. So for about $40,000, you can get into your first property. After that, I am saving up and taking all the rental income and saving it up. And after about less than a year, it accumulates. And then with work, I'm able to get commercial loan, business loans. So, and with those, you can go as low as 15%. And when I do that, I'm targeting lesser homes. So, for example, in my market, the single family homes are around 300 to 400. But when I can get a primary resident loan, I'll aim for the higher 400s because you can get a lot more square footage that can be easily split. But and when I get the business loans, I'm getting homes that are lesser in quality, around the high 200s, low 300s. With 15% down, you're still at around 50,000 as an investment upfront. So that's how I've been doing it, and I'm up to 5 properties in 2.5 years now.
And I do like people, like I said earlier in the show, the advocating of the primary residence house hack. And if you're like a lot of the people that follow us, they're already licensed. And so
Yep.
you got 3.5 down, you could pull 3% out of the deal as a commission. And an FHA loan, you can take up to a 5% seller credit. So for a lot of people, if you know the levers, you can actually, as long as you have your job and you DTI, debt to income qualify, you could get that first house hack property potentially with no money down with a couple of mechanics. Let's go into the architecture background and what you're identifying and what you're doing to it.
For me, I was targeting houses that needed bathroom and kitchen renovations. So for a kitchen, if you're looking at mid-level appliances, I'm not talking like the lower level, but level 2 appliances. I was doing all the work, the tear down myself, and installing brand new kitchens, ground up, gutting everything, putting it in. I consider that cost around 5 to 8,000, and then bathrooms were actually less. They're just more labor intensive. You can get away with renovating a whole bathroom to a fully modernized version for under 2,000 if you did all the work yourself. I would suggest considering buying properties that have ugly kitchens and ugly bathrooms, because that's what's going to get you the most money. So when people buy houses, I feel like they're buying emotionally. But if you buy based on data, the most profit you're going to get are homes that have terrible kitchens and terrible bathrooms.
So with these, Muzzy, with these renovations, so far, have you taken all of your with a multifamily? Like, meaning, did you buy everything so far single family and add a separate unit?
Correct. With my background, it does help, but you can spot them. It's not hard. You'll see that like certain bathrooms can be into 2 bathrooms. Some of the ranchers, especially, for example. Imagine you buy a new home, you go to a new development, and the builder is saying, "Oh, well, we can. This comes in a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom configuration, or a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom configuration." And all they did on their plans was split a wall and add a half a bathroom. Same thing goes. It's like you walk in these homes and you're like, you know what? In this development, I've seen a bunch of these houses, and they have an extra bathroom, and this one doesn't. Why is that? It was just an option that the beginning seller didn't do. And the great news is I use Zillow a lot because Zillow keeps track of all the pictures of houses. So here's a secret strategy if you're you're looking at an investment property and you feel like you can do renovations to the bathrooms to it. In that development or that area, usually the builder that built those set of homes, if it's not a custom home, and most likely it isn't as your investment property, you can go in Zillow for as long as the record that Zillow held and look at those properties, and they have pictures inside. And you can kind of figure out the layout of the houses. And some of the houses will be identical layout. And you can see what other builders have done or other owners have renovated and done. And you can kind of get an understanding of how the plumbing system works, or like where you can add a bathroom super easy. The biggest is adding bathrooms on like multi-level units, like 2-floor buildings. You can add a bathroom directly under a bathroom above you. No problem, because all the riser and vents are right there. So you don't have to dig foundations or anything like that.
And Muzzy, are you doing anything that requires you to go to the city? Because if and maybe you're not doing a full change in density, but
Yeah.
zoning laws are relatively consistent across
Yep.
America. So, if you go into a property that's zoned single family,
Yep.
you may have enough land to where they can say, no, your density allows another unit. Have you had to do anything on the administrative municipal level
Right.
zoning?
With your listeners and everything, I want to be upfront that you do need to know the rules. If you're in a city or municipality, you want to go to their website and read all the rules. Obviously, some of it can be dense. Some of it mostly refers to IBC, the International Building Code. And my background helps me with that. But obviously, as a homeowner, just spend the time, just like any business. Knowledge is power, right? Read them. There are ways to mitigate that. And the most common way is in-law suites. You can have a single family unit that has converted partial of it to an in-law suite. And then the in-law suite technically becomes a one unit, one bedroom, one bathroom unit that you can rent. So in-law suites are permitted. So if you're doing plumbing work in the wall, technically based on your local municipalities, I would definitely check. If you're not digging anything, you're not into cast iron pipe, you're in PVC, that's all considered home repair. Now, that being said, in my area, if I do 3 sheets of drywall, I need a permit, right? So that's to cover general construction. Windows, replacing windows. That was one of the biggest hurdles. Is I was scared of replacing windows, and once I did one, and I thought this was the easiest cash grab, is replacing windows, homes with old windows. You do not need a permit for windows. You don't need a permit for modifications of existing, if you do not modify existing openings. So, for example, the most common way to increase square footage in your home is going to be converting a garage or a shed. So insulating it and converting the garage door into a window and a door. That doesn't require a permit. Sheds that are less than 200 square foot don't require a permit, so that covers extensions as well. So there are certain things that don't require permits. Now there are things that do require permits, and I'm going to advocate to not stay away from getting a permit, because that can only help and protect your investment. So, for example, if you're doing a deck or a small extension, it's not hard. The city is just trying to be there to help you to prevent any catastrophe. So, you as a person, if you're doing your own renovations, you can get a permit fairly easily with a sketch on a piece of paper of what you're doing. And I've been lucky for my area. They help you out. They're not there to get you. They're there to help you out. So if you're scared to confront them, don't be. I mean, the city inspectors have been great. So some of my modifications, I do get permits. Yes.
All right. And so just for the listeners, Muzzy is speaking to his market. So obviously we can't, for instance, in my market in Northeast Florida, that would not be the case. But in his market, he has, like he said, he analyzed the code and he figured out what he can do. He found a mother-in-law exception or code where he's allowed to do what might otherwise require additional permits. He found out he can do windows, so without permits. Now, where I am, you need permits for windows, and a lot of what he said would not be applicable. You also have to be careful. Are you zoned commercial or residential? Even if you look residential, like my 4-unit building, you guys have probably heard me talk about, it's actually a commercially zoned 4-unit office that I'm converting to 4 residential. So like I have to do fire suppression and architectural life safety, and it's I'm probably on month 3 in the permitting process. So so there's pros and cons. So I think what I want everyone broadly to take away from what Muzzy's saying, don't think like, oh, I can do windows without a permit, I can do a mother-in-law suite. Just know that he read his code and he figured out where he can move quickly with his skill set. Another thing you'll hear me talk about is like knowing your superpower. I'd like people to notice Muzzy knows his superpower. His power is in his background, getting through this code, using his architecture credentials, and getting things done. Now, going back to what you're doing with these properties, Muzzy, are you doing anything where, say, you do the mother-in-law suite or a garage conversion, which I mean, those are smart moves as long as your zoning allows. Are you doing new exterior doors, or are they accessing the property differently, or is it more like
Yeah.
they're coming into one property and moving around?
That gets to the codes again, right? But in good rule of thumb, and this is going to be pretty much IBC all the 50 states use, is each unit's going to have 2 points of egress. So you'll want to make sure that if you are splitting or making a mother-in-law suite, mother-in-law suites don't count; they're considered part of the single-family unit. But if you are converting, doing that is take that in consideration. And that's a good point, Ian, that you brought up. But when I go look for properties, I look for multiple exits. That's the first thing I look at. And then also converting windows into doors, because you're not changing the header, as long as the exit is 36 inches wide, which is the new IBC. Older homes will have 32, which you get grandfathered in, but that's a little technical there. But yeah, just consider multiple exits. A home with 4 exterior doors is key. Now, that being said, not to get nitty gritty in that, is that you need 4 exits. Technically, it doesn't mean that you have to walk out of the exits. So it could be a balcony or a door on the second floor that has a railing. You just need to be able to get out. So, for example, you look at apartment complexes, technically all apartments only have 1 door out to a main hallway and 2 fire escapes. But most apartments have a balcony or a double door with a rail on it. That's the same reason.
So. That was a good example, and I think most of the audience could wrap their minds around that. So, all right, now let's jump into a little bit of your underwriting. So we know what you're looking for, what you're doing to them. You said you're a buy and hold. Well, you only buy and hold. Well, most people only buy and hold if they're going to cash flow. So what kind of underwriting cash flow are you looking for? What are your rules of thumb?
So my rules of thumb is that my wife's an accountant. She's studying her CPA right now. I'm really proud of her. And she's helped me lay down pretty much data, mortgage, electric bills, insurance, all that, and amount of work that has to go in and your investment in the property and how much you should be getting out. So the way I look at it is right now what you feel comfortable with. You can get high returns in the beginning or later returns, but the way I look at it, each unit or property that I buy, because each property becomes multiple units, each property that I buy, I want to have income coming in that is at least double, if not 1.5 times of my total payments for the year. So if I have a mortgage payment of $1,000, I want to make $2,500 out of that unit. So when I purchase a home, I'm looking at the area rent, and what I do is look at your apartment complexes in the real estate you're looking at, because they have the highest turnover. Because people that move into apartments are not trying to stay there long term, right? They want to eventually, if they had a choice ever, they're going to rent a single family resident or a duplex or somewhere else. They're not going to stay in an apartment. So apartments have highest turnovers. So look at the apartments, and all the apartments will tell you they're renting 2-bedroom, 2-bath, X amount of dollars. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, X amount of dollars. Now, if you come in the market in the same area as this apartment complex and you're offering a non-apartment unit that looks better at the same price, you automatically get all the application renters. So you're going to refer to that as your base point price. That's what I do. There's different strategies, but I found that to be very economical. So I'm working smarter. So instead of me doing the analysis and data, I'm letting the big corporations, apartment complexes do that study for me. Tell me what the rental prices are going in that area. And then I use that for my understanding. So when I get a property, I said, okay, I can make a 2-bedroom, 2-bath and a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. I'll add those 2 rentals from the apartment together. And then I'll make sure that the loan I get is 1.5 times less than that. Well, technically 3 times less than that. So if my mortgage is 1,000 and I can rent one of the units at 2 and the other unit at 1, I'm making $2,000 off of that unit, and I'm above my 1.5 times.
All right, and I'm gonna repackage that for the audience. So what Muzzy is referencing is like a debt coverage service ratio. You'll hear people say like DSCR ratios. I actually think it's a smart way to look at deals. A lot of times, if you and I like Bigger Pockets, by the way, but Bigger Pockets does a lot of discussion of like the 1% rule,
Yep.
a 2% rule, a 50% rule. Okay, well, an easy way, if you don't like that, 1% rule is actually just 100 times monthly rent per unit. It's the same analysis. So what Muzzy's talking about is debt service coverage ratio. So it's the number he's referencing is unique to the debt he's placing on the property, but it's still a very good analysis, because if Muzzy just said, you know what, I don't pay more than the 1% rule. So if a property rents for $1,000 a month, I won't pay more than $100,000 for that property, all in, renovated. That's
correct.
Usually you don't pay the 1% rule and then renovate it. That would defeat the purpose. But what Muzzy's saying is, okay, if I buy a property and I'm into it for $100,000, it needs to rent for $2,000 or $3,000, which is actually an incredible return.
Correct.
And part of why I wanted Muzzy on the show is let's be clear with what he's told you. He's buying properties off of the MLS, like straight off of Zillow. He's now, air quotes, overpaying. But what he's doing is he's using his background and his superpower to change the floor plans and work within the narrow constraints of the code to get tremendous rental rates. And he just told you he's able to, I'll use my own words, he's able to poach apartment tenants that essentially at that same rate, and he's letting the apartment analytics guide what he can get, which is probably conservative, which is good. It's probably why you're able to outperform. So, to say it one more time, Muzzy's buying on a 2 to 3 times debt service coverage ratio. So if your PITI is 1,000 and you rent the unit for 2,000, you have a coverage of 2. I think that's pretty straightforward. If you get 3,000, you're at 3. So a nice thing about debt service coverage, Muzzy, I don't think you're going to lose a single property that you do when you have debt coverage ratios this high, because even if you ran your asset at, God forbid, 50% occupancy.
Correct.
You're still good. I mean, if you buy something on a debt coverage of 2 and you're half empty, you're still breaking even. So it's a good fallback plan. It's actually, I'm kind of fond of that ratio because in my appraisal days, it's a critical underwriting tool. Like when banks give you money, a 1.25 ratio is a very common minimum ratio. Higher is better. Higher risk properties might hit like a 1.6 or 1.7 ratio. Super like triple net Starbucks ground leases. Some bank might be cool with like a 1.1 debt coverage ratio. But my point is it's an indication of risk. And what Muzzy's done with doing a 2 or 3 times debt coverage, he's mitigated a lot of risk.
Yeah, so go back a little bit. Let's say you're getting your first property, you're going to get a primary residence loan. If you're going to convert it into a mother-in-law suite, and obviously this is a game plan for you, you're gonna pretty much live in one unit and rent the other. The other unit you're renting is paying for all your expenses. You're living free. That's pretty much what you're doing. And then once you move out of there in a year, you're renting the second unit, and all of that is profit. So
correct.
Another way I'm looking at this, that's my first rule of thumb, that I'm getting way more out of it because I'm looking at the units separately. So for example, you go buy a home and it's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. In this area, this is just an example, in this area, a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, based on where it is, your rent capped is around $3,000 max. And it has to be a good neighborhood, next to the park, walking distance, everything. To get someone to pay $3,000 a month in rent, and it is way high. But the 4-bedroom, 3-bath can be a 2-bedroom, 2-bath and a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. I can rent the 2-bedroom, 2-bath for $2,400, and I have 200 applicants. If I try to rent the 4-bedroom, 3-bath, I'm going to get 10 applicants. And I'm going to get doctors, lawyers, people that are just there temporarily because they're trying to get their degree, residency, trying out the area before they have their own home. So I'm not going to squeeze out the most profit out of it. So I'm going to do a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, get $2,400, a 1-bedroom, 1-bath for $1,200. I'm now at $3,600. instead of
It's
struggling
yeah.
to get three. Struggling to get three, hard to get three. I'm guaranteeing myself 3,600 easy.
I totally agree, and I think that for the audience, never underestimate the rental power and demand of a well done smaller unit. I don't want to. This is not an Airbnb episode. That'll be a different guest, a different time. But
So,
I have a 200 square foot unit at my home, so I house hack as well. My house, and I'm not flexing.
yep,
My house is about 3,300 square feet, of which this little 200 square foot studio, I live on a corner. If you follow our Instagram, I show stuff. That little studio is cute, has a Murphy bed, a mini split, a little kitchenette.
yep,
It's essentially a hotel room with a
correct.
drop down bed. I'll do traveling nurses, $2,250 a month. It pays almost my entire 3,300 square foot house, and it's a house hack where I have a ton of square footage to myself, very little for the tenant, and it's beautiful. Now, what I like that Muzzy's doing is you're essentially taking a big Frankenstein property that no one's going to pay $3,000 a month to rent,
Correct.
and then you're carving it off, and there's a lot of demand for that one bedroom unit.
Yeah. So there is a lot of demands for 3 bedroom, 2 baths, and 1 bedroom, 1 bath. It's basically understanding your audience. Like, so basically, you're looking at young entrepreneurs or just starting off in life. They need 1 bedroom, 1 baths, nice studio loft, and just the culture nowadays with Instagram and everything being online. That's one of my other big strategies. I can charge a little bit more rent because I'm spending a little bit more money, and what my wife says, we make the unit Instagrammable.
Yeah. I think we all know what that means. Yes, people like to take photos where they live and show their lifestyle. And just a point of clarification, when Muzzy says these entrepreneurs are moving in, a term you might hear more commonly is the gig economy, and that really is the trend. I mean, we're on a trend to where over half the workforce is going to be in this gig economy, and they're not going to stay in one city for a long period of time. So by focusing on owning assets and rentals, there's going to be just this rising demographic that doesn't stay in one place very long. They're going to work many jobs, or maybe many jobs at once,
Correct.
and they're going to move around. And they're taking flexibility as a priority. So, anyways, that's where owning properties like I own and like Muzzy owns, you can really outperform.
Yeah. So that being said, you're gonna learn that if you're doing this by yourself, you're gonna run out of time. So you want to be more efficient. You want to delegate. You want to sub out, hire people to do work for you that is not efficient for you to make profit on. For example, if I do a kitchen renovation, what would you consider paying yourself? Or if you hire, like for example, around here, if you hire a contractor to do a kitchen renovation, they're not going to step in for less than $10,000. But if you tackle it, YouTube is a great tool. I use YouTube all the time. Watch YouTube, do it yourself. Lowe's has his own series of stuff. And you try to do it yourself, give it a try, a little kitchenette or something like that. Imagine you paid yourself $10,000. You can do it in less than a month. So you just made $10,000 for yourself. That's profitable. But let's say mowing the grass on all your properties, right? You can pay someone $40 every week to do it. For you to have all the equipment run around and do all that, it's going to take you 2-3 days. That's not efficient of your time. So you want to start getting to a point where you understand what's the most profitable version of your time and focus on that. That's what I'm finding, at least as a starting business, growing business in 2 years in, is that you have to start being efficient with your time to be more profitable.
And I couldn't agree more. And I think I'm going to save that topic for further episodes as we get to where we are in this particular time together. But you're right. Scaling and allocation are critical. And a lot of times somebody just trades a W-2 job for this new landlording gig where you're running around just as busy or busier than your last W-2. So it really does come down to what are your goals? And that's actually where I want to take the next question. If your goals are to scale and find freedom, that's why when we started the show, I tell so many people, if you still have a car payment and you're not living for free in a house hack, start there, because there's no easier way to free up $30,000, $40,000+ a year in your life than right there. And if you can't make money with a spare $30,000 to $40,000 a year, God help you. Or keep watching our show. We'll figure it out together. But let's talk about your goals, Muzzy. I have in your bio you want to retire by 40 and build a family home. How old are you now? Remind me.
37.
Okay, so the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about where you want to be next, and kind of round out the episode with that and where people can find you.
So my goal here was, when I first started a couple years ago with $50,000 in investment in real estate, it was that I was going to get 10 units. And at 10 units, at the profit margin that I was looking at, I would be equal, if not the same, as how much I was making on my day job. So I would feel comfortable in retiring at that point. So I'm at 9 units now, and I'm way above of what I was thinking I was going to make. Obviously, it was a lot of hard work. You work your day job, then you still have a second job. Saturdays, Sundays are booked, but it's worth it. Now, the biggest thing I can tell you is that the amount of investment in my life where I worked hard up to 37 compared to the last 2 years is to me unfathomable. Real estate had really opened my eyes into a different way of thinking. It's definitely an avenue to make money faster, or your investments grow, better term. But the hard work does pay off. And look at yourself, make your plans. Like Ian was saying, your 1 year plan, if you have a car payment, get rid of it somehow. If you have a home that you're in, Airbnb a portion of it or sublet it. Get out of that. And what I tell people is, life is not a graph that steady increases. The hardships are in plateaus. And each plateau gets easier and easier as you grow up. And that's what I found, is that if you're down here, it's hard to get to the next plateau. But the one after that is easier, because you have more assets, you have more income, and you have more options. When you're down here, your options are less. Because your options are less, you know exactly what to do. Pick one and go. Yeah. So I go with this saying, is that if you want to be successful, what's the biggest thing that successful people have that we don't have? It's not like they had better options. No. To me, I believe it's because they were able to make more decisions faster.
And I like the expression, simple, not easy. We just told the audience a handful of things that are actually incredibly simple. They're almost so simple, if we just said them all in 3 minutes, the show would be too short. But remember, simple, not easy. If I say, get rid of that car payment and start living for free or cash flowing out of your primary residence, well, Ian, I don't want to do that. I don't want a stranger in my house. Oh, I like my car. Well, guess what? I didn't say it was easy. How bad do you want your goal?
Correct.
You need to really establish that why. Yep. And if your why is not strong enough, maybe, let's be honest, sometimes I'm just too brutal, but maybe you're not cut out for it. I said simple, not easy, but don't look at everybody else and where they are and wish you could have it without acknowledging the fact that you might have to shape up and change some habits.
Correct. So the biggest front for me was that you need to invest in yourself to grow. You're going to need some hardships in the beginning, some uncomfortability. You're going to be uncomfortable because you're doing stuff that you never did before, and you have a lot of questions and unknowns. But that's part of growing, right? The best chess player in the world has lost the most games, right? Yeah. Let's say Elon Musk has filed bankruptcy more than you would think. It almost, bailed himself out many times. It's in failure is where you learn. And so with something that you perceive connotatively negatively, there is a positive equal reaction. And viewing that will change your view into growing in this field, I believe. So with that being said, don't be scared. I was scared. Everyone's going to be scared. But once you get your foot into it, you're going to see returns. And you'll see. So your 5-10 year goal, focus on that. How do you achieve your 5-10 year goal? If you have to sacrifice 1 year of hardship to be good for the rest of your life, anyone would take that deal, right? You would press that button right now. Now, if I say, okay, 1.5 year of hardship for 30 years of good life. Would you press that button? Of course you would press that button. How about 2 years? How about 3 years?
And I think a lot of people hesitate because it comes down to, do they really believe at the end of that sacrifice there's going to be a carrot or a pot of gold or freedom or whatever they're seeking? And that's part of the point of this show. I mean, I don't already know you. You're a guest that, came through our channels, and I've enjoyed this, but you're not some friend of mine that I've convinced to tell some story. You are Muzzy. You're in your own market. You're over 1,000 miles away from me, and look what you've done. And there's a lot of overlap. I mean, you demonstrated a unique strategy of how you're able to buy things essentially right off the shelf, how you're funding them, what you're doing to them, what kind of debt coverage you're looking for, and what your exit strategy is. So, I mean, I appreciate your transparency, and I hope everybody got a lot out of this. Are there any parting words you'd like to give the audience? And please let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at Muzzy Yousefi. I'm just starting off. My company is called Mammoth Group, LLC. Taxes were hard for the first time with all these properties, but I'm learning to work at it. Coming from a multicultural background, living in different countries, I can tell you, at least here in America, the work you put in is the work you're going to get out. There's no rug that's going to get pulled under you. So just know it will pay off. You put the time in, you'll get the rewards at the end. Maybe not tomorrow, but a year from now.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate you sharing that. I think some people overlook the fact that there really is still a lot of upward social mobility. Yes, there are systems that keep maybe some people a little more down than others. But however, you compare America to many other cultures, and there's still incredible upside in social mobility. And I will say, here we are on a podcast. This doesn't take a lot of time and money to produce. Personal branding through your social media, networking, finding resources on YouTube. We have referenced so many things in the past hour that really don't cost any money and that have dramatically changed, both of our lives. So, no, I've really enjoyed this. I'd like everybody to remember to rate and subscribe to the podcast so we can keep doing this. This is episode 16. I'm very happy that we've even made it this far. I'm enjoying it. And upcoming events, we'll keep you posted on those. We're probably going to do some live events, physical live events later this year. And anything else from you, Muzzy?
Keep growing and learning.
I like it. All right. And for everyone else, it's Coach Brown telling you to lace up and leave it all on the field. Coach out.